What is this one thing about the disinformation that you wish more people knew about?
I'd like them to understand how easily they can be manipulated or misled by information spread through different kinds of social media platforms and networks. Because I think people, and I mean everybody, has this some kind of built-in belief, emotional in our heads that anything we read or see or watch is trustable. But unfortunately, with social networks, it is not true anymore.
Have you ever been duped?
I've been scammed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was like I'm book lover, and there is this book. There are those book lovers groups on Facebook. Once I just asked on this Latvian local book club about one book, and a person wrote, "Oh, I have this book, and I will go lately to post office. I can send you later today, but you have to transfer my money now." So everything sounds very suspicious, But this book was, something you cannot buy in the shops anymore. It's quite a rare book, and I was just this greediness of me to have this very rare book was stronger than my common sense, like understanding why somebody asks me, transfer money urgently,
Right.
for a book. So I transferred the money, never got the book, never got money back.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it, but it actually shows us a very important lesson that we can learn: emotions.
Yeah.
And how disinformation preys on our emotions.
And I think this is also sometimes people like us who are working in this field, we are somehow a bit snobbish, that we know everything, how the information is spread. We cannot be, misled. We cannot be scammed. But actually, especially now with all those AI technologies and everything, actually we all are vulnerable. Specifically, as you mentioned, because of those emotions and emotionally driven decisions.
We're all vulnerable to it, as you say, but maybe there are things that we could actually learn, or maybe you could give us some recommendations on how to not to be fooled in the future. How can we prepare?
When it comes to any kind of information, and this is something which comes back to my journalism days, to actually being student of journalism, you always have to have those two sources of information which is confirming it. For example, sometimes I also read something, sometimes on Facebook or Telegram, and for me, when I have some suspicions, I will usually check, did really Joe Biden said it, and then you check with other sources. And of course, I usually use traditional media, something old school for some parts of our societies, unfortunately. So it's really like, specifically when there is information which is somehow, I wouldn't say strange, but raising some questions, it's good to check. Of course, again, emotions, lack of time, we are not usually doing it. Or, of course, if you are part of some kind of vaccine group on Telegram, then you don't need to check anything because vaccines are bad and big pharma is bad. I think this is this crazy situation. One thing is educating this biggest part of society to ask those questions to themselves, to check once more, to understand more like the ways algorithms work. But I think we haven't been successful on getting in those bubbles of people who believe on chemtrails and all this stuff we laugh about,
I like how you said that we are snobbish about it, and I think there is an element of this in this conversation about how we look down on certain people just because they follow certain beliefs that are not true. But I think it's important for us to get down a little bit from our pedestal and actually try to listen and understand. What do you think about that?
I think yes, and we have a project. We deliver it in eastern parts of Estonia and Latvia. We call them media clubs, but these are the places where actually representatives of local communities, both seniors and younger people, they come together and discuss some issues. For example, in Daugavpils was discussing the leftovers of Soviet symbols in local architecture. Again, it's not about Russian propaganda directly, but still discussing it and not judging anybody, not trying to put on some kind of narratives, but more like having this discussion format or celebrating together for example, Latvian Independence Day. Again, then it's a place to talk about your identity, about your attitudes towards your government. So I see that this is, of course, again, these are initiatives you cannot reach massive audiences, but at least you see that when you go, as you said, you go down, you humble yourself and you just talk to people, listen to them, and then they are also eager to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you cannot manage it on massive scale.
Mm-hmm. And what about journalists? You said you've been a journalist, whole your life, may I say? What is the definition of journalism for you, and what it means to be a journalist now?
It's very difficult to be a journalist now because of many reasons. This erosion of trust, which goes together with expansion of social media, which has become competitor of journalism, and parts of society not understanding this difference. And of course, with AI and all the other tools and digital changes, journalism is suffering when it comes to its engagement with audience and so on. But overall, if you ask me about the role of the journalism, in my mind, it has become even more important because journalists are still those people who are fact checking, and I don't mean only fact checking, like this initiative, but really fact checking any kind of information they deliver. They analyze, they look for broader context, they explain, because I think it's a very difficult place we live now. And again, for all of us, it's very hard, for example, to understand Gaza conflict. And actually, it's journalists need to give this broader context, because otherwise we get polarized very easily and just exchange with some sometimes even some half trust. So it's really describing the world around us, which is very difficult currently.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah,
Agree. What about the responsibility on cleaning the internet? Who should be responsible for this? Is it the users themselves, or maybe someone else, or maybe some entities?
I don't have this some kind of one solution in my mind, because there are two things which are contradicting. From one side, as a journalist, I'm totally for freedom of speech, but when I see that actually social networks are helping to erode our democracy, I think some kind of regulation should be brought in. In idealistic world, it would be those big platforms themselves who would, come to this recognition that yes, they have a big role, but also a big responsibility, how this world looks like. But because due to many reasons, it doesn't seem they are willing to do it themselves. We see that at least there are some EU regulations and so on. So I would still think that there is some kind of common agreement in some kind of government international level how we can regulate, not over regulating this process.
Okay. Last question. What is Gunta's top reading recommendation or watching recommendation for people who want to learn more about journalism or propaganda studies, disinformation? What would you recommend?
I would still say you just need to have professional media in your everyday diet.
Okay.
Because and you can choose any, because now it's plenty of formats, plenty of ways to actually consume good quality journalism. Of course, I have also subscribed many newsletters which are more like either by different kinds of organizations or media created for media and disinformation issues. Then again, it's this issue of, can you read all newsletters?
True.
Subscribe, and yeah, but I would say it's really, of course, yeah, because when you include professional media content in your everyday information, those some kind of consumption, then it's much harder for those different kinds of misinformation or disinformation which is in social media to affect you.
So quality journalism, it is. Thank you so much for your time and for answering the questions.